Hi, my name is Ted with Legacy Brand Leather. Today, I'm crafting a revision to my Venturer wallet for my good buddy Andrew. Let's get to it.
Firstly, I'm pulling out a template of the Venturer wallet that I'm making here today. This is one I did in Adobe Illustrator and cut out all the pieces previously. Today we're using some black harness leather from Wickett Craig. This is around 2 to 3 ounces thick. Next, I'm tracing all the pieces with the templates that I've cut out previously. Here's some fabric I'm going to be using to line this wallet, but more on that later. I'm holding the rotary cutter this way so I don't have an angled cut when I cut the edges of the leather. Next, I'm using a Verger Blanchard L'indispensable knife. This is a very sharp knife that I try to keep as sharp as possible when I'm going to be cutting my leather pieces. Then I'm using a fine edge beveler to bevel all the pieces, top and bottom. From there, I'm using some Tokonol clear edge dressing that I'm going to burnish with a Cocobolo wood burnisher on a rotary Dremel tool, and then burnishing again with some canvas cloth. Here I'm just putting my logo onto the piece with a 4-ton hand-operated clicker press. Now I'm skiving the leather on the interior pieces so that it doesn't get too bulky when you start stitching this whole thing together. You could do this for all the pieces, but I'm just doing it for the interior card slots. Now I'm hammering in the card slot pieces that I'm going to be stitching to the wallet. Here I'm using a rougher tool so that I can glue up this piece with Eco Weld, which is a more natural glue that doesn't smell or isn't as toxic as some of the other glues that I've been using. And here's a chalk pencil so I can mark out the interior cloth piece that I then cut. Right here I'm using a caliper to mark the distance from the edge that I'm going to be then cutting so that I can stitch through the cloth but won't have a piece of cloth between the leather when I do my trim allowance. And this is to mark where the cloth is going to be sitting in relation to the edges. There I'm just cutting off the corners so that I don't risk having some cloth sitting on the corners when I start to round the edges. Putting some stitch grooves and some stitching holes that I'm going to stitch the interior pockets together with. Here I'm using some Vinymo MBT number 5 Black Thread. And now it's just a matter of gluing up the pieces. First starting off with the cloth interior. And the remaining pieces, the interior and the exterior together. Here's the trim allowance that I'm etching into the piece that I then cut. This is one of the most satisfying parts of this process, trimming up the edges so they're all flush. I wish I could leave it here, but I do have to round the edges and then apply a stitch groove so I can start stitching this together. Here I'm just adding some stitch holes to the entire piece. And it's time to stitch it up. And now I just rough the edges before I start to bevel the entire piece. Here I'm starting with a 220 grit sandpaper and go all the way through 3000 grit for a nice soft edge that I'm going to burnish to a nice polish, and then going to add some edge paint. Once I'm done with the initial burnishing, I will do a rough sand of the entire piece on the edges, and then add some EcoFlow Edge Flex black edge paint. Then I'll let that dry, sand again, and then do some more edge paint before I start burnishing the entire piece again for the last burnish.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found it insightful. My goal is to have this wallet available for purchase through my website in the not too distant future. If you like this video, please hit that like button and please consider subscribing to see more content. Also, if you're interested in any of the tools that I used here today, I'm going to try to link to as many of them as possible in the description. Unfortunately, I will not have any videos for the next 2 weeks as I will be traveling in Japan. Feel free to keep up to date on my travels through my Instagram @LegacyBrandLeather. Besides that, see you in a few weeks with a new video.